Hey Michelle, how are you going today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Welcome everyone to Estate and Succession Mastery, 3rd of April today, 24. And today we're just going to talk about the role of various other professional people as part of our process, Rural Succession Solutions, and the process that we take clients through as part of the estate and succession planning process. We find people have all sorts of different needs as we're going through the process with them. Occasionally there's counselling needs, there's accounting needs. Obviously, there's always going to be legal needs, Michelle. You're never going to be without a job. So,
Yeah, true.
it's a very important part of the process. But I just thought we'd go through and talk about the sorts of things that we find people need, Michelle, as part of the process today. And I'm still waiting for that surfboard behind you to move. So maybe the weather will get better over the next few weeks.
That'd be good.
That's fine. So, as you know, our process, Rural Succession Solutions, we take people through a 9-step process in regard to getting their estate and their succession planning done. And 3 of those steps, most importantly, Michelle, with you and Tom in many cases to help people as part of the legal process. But one of the early parts of our process is where we sit down with people effectively and have what we call a tea and scones, because it literally is. I love to insist on meeting people face to face so we get to know each other. It's always good if I can get out to people's properties or farms or wherever they are to get an understanding of who they are and where they hang out, meet all the kids and all that sort of stuff. But many times the other professionals that we need along the way, the first one, Michelle, and I'm sure you have experience with this too, is the role of a financial planner, because sometimes the viability of the farm to still continue to look after mum and dad and have a child, coming through as part of the transition, there's not always the income there to look after 2 families. Have you had much to do with the role of the financial planner as part of the process, or you just have a good understanding of what they do?
Yeah, I've had quite a bit. I work quite closely with one financial planner in particular with a bunch of my clients, and they're really important for most people in this sort of area, not only for farming people, but just for everyone generally, especially when they're considering their estate planning. So I have had a bit to do with them.
Yeah, the thing that pops up for us most of the time, isn't it? We talk about creating extra silos of wealth. We're not confusing people here with silos of grain out in the back paddock. We're talking about trying to create silos of wealth off farm. And this could be, as you say, for just normal run-of-the-mill business people as well, is not to have all your wealth, so to speak, just tied up in the business, because a lot of times people naturally, if they have a good year, they want to reinvest in the business and buy the property next door, or buy more stock, or fix up the fences and do all the capital improvements, and that's great for the value and the capital value of the property, the farm, the real estate, but it doesn't help in regard to kids that may not be wanting to come back to the farm, come back to the business, and also, one of the most important things, if you can build up a good silo of wealth off farm or off business, so to speak, when it comes time to transition the business from one generation to the next, it takes the pressure off those that are taking over the farm, the business, the property, or whatever. Takes the pressure off them having to look after mum and dad as time goes on too. So, if along the way you've managed to stash off a whole lot of wealth to look after yourself, then that's a very important part. Plus the non-farm children. It's usually more than one, so there's only one can take over the farm. So how are you going to look after the other kids? What are your thoughts in regard to that?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points. So you could have it so that you've got your farm, which you give to one child, and then your other silos of wealth can be used for your other children. Or it could just be that your farm is only your business, as you say, not in your children's interests. So when you wind that up, it might not be part of your assets in the future. So if you've got other wealth that you can then hand down to your next generation. And also for some people, their farm is not their main, it's just more of a lifestyle or hobby or something like that. Still big.
Yep.
That's why they need other wealth to support them moving into a new phase of life, like retirement.
Yeah, they hate that word though, retirement. It's not a word that
Yeah.
that was the craziest one to hear, but it's the truth of the matter. And at some stage, you can't run up the fence as fast as a bull can chase you. So, there comes that time where you have to let go and transition to the next generation. But we're actually finding more and more that, and certainly with the work with financial planners, Michelle, you would have seen this too, where people are, you may as well, they're getting to a point where they probably should make the decision to sell the farm at this stage in life if it's not creating enough income to look after mum and dad and whoever's taking it over for the next generation. So sometimes, that's the only option left. And as much as, I understand how, longevity of the farm in the family name and all that sort of stuff, how important that is. I mean, I come from that situation myself, but sometimes if there's not enough money there, then sometimes you've got to sell the asset and get on with your life. And as we've talked about in previous episodes, is these days with the value of farms and so on, maybe now is a good time to get out to invest that money elsewhere, because you can make so much more income sticking it into an investment. And that's where the financial planners, certainly as part of our process, if it's appropriate, financial planners can come along and have a conversation with clients and give them options in regard to what's going to be the best way to manage themselves from a wealth point of view and an income point of view as time goes on. Is that thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the second things we sometimes get people involved in as we're going through our process, Michelle, is what we call is a business called Transition Planning Australia. Peter McNulty, some of the listeners may know. Peter runs a program to help people who don't think there is life beyond what they're currently doing. They don't think there's life beyond the farm, and this is not about making a suggestion that you need to play golf 5 times a week and take up hobbies to fill in your time. It's really about working out what's the best option for you when that time comes for you to transition from being the full-time grazier, farmer, whatever, business person into a life after that, and still be able to have an enjoyable, worthwhile and productive life moving forward. And Peter McNulty is very good at helping people go through that process. He runs a number of courses, programs, and so on. And I guess, Michelle, you've probably seen that as part of what you're doing in your work, is that people really need to, don't they, work out what to do with their lives once they let go. Because, the greatest danger, as you'd guess, is if mum and dad don't let go, what does that do for the next generation coming through? You've seen examples of that, I guess.
Yeah, and it can be really hard for people who have lived there their whole life, so grown up with their family working on the farm and then they take it over, but also people who have started later on in life and still have made their life around this farm, coming back to doing something that does not revolve 100% around the farm can be very challenging for people. And we absolutely see that often. It's probably the biggest hurdle from farming, trying to move on from that and accept your life needs to change. And if you do stay there beyond your time and you don't have anyone to look after you, then accidents can happen. It's difficult for your family to help you and support you through your older years because they can't necessarily get to you quickly or often. So it can just be a bit challenging.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I think you'd understand, Michelle, too. And look, certainly from my own family, I'm not sure your family situation is with this, but, I remember if my dad hadn't had an illness later in life, which probably gave him a sense of mortality. And I think sometimes that's what farmers and graziers, until that happens, they think they're invincible, bulletproof, and so on. And sometimes that, if something does happen, that gives them the wake-up call they need, probably, that it's time that they slowed down, let go, and hand it over. And the other thing is too, if the reason we get transition planners like Peter involved is if mum and dad aren't going to let go, what does the next generation do? And they're supposed to. I have I'll call them kids. I have kids sitting around in their 50s and 60s, waiting for mum and dad, meaning kids as in the children, who might be in their 50s and 60s, waiting for mum and dad to finally let go and let them take over the business. And by then it's kind of too late. I mean, I think by mid 30s and so on, usually is a time that most men and women who want to take over, that's kind of the age where they want to stand up and say, okay, let me have a go. You've had your go. I've got some new ideas. I've been to college. Yeah. I've done some, I've been working in other farms, other businesses, and I've got some new ideas. And Dad, we can keep using yours for the rest of your life, or we can try and bring some new concepts and strategies in. And that's where transition planning is very important, because otherwise, the parents are just never going to let go. And I don't think that really doesn't help anybody. And I think, I meet two types of people. Some accept that, and they've watched other families where dad's held on too long and it's all turned to dust. And they don't necessarily be like that. And I guess you've seen that in your own work, Michelle.
Yeah, it causes a lot of friction sometimes between people who are adamant they're going to stay there as long as they can, or they think they can, and the children, they don't lose interest, but they have to go on and do their own thing instead of going to the farm. And that can cause real rifts between the family.
I think if you go back to my web page, the video I did some years ago about a guy I met out west in Queensland here, and he was in his mid-50s, getting towards 60, and he's still working for a pittance for his dad, and in the end, Dad just kept using it as a lever over his head. He got to the stage where he'd worked there so long, and he had absolutely no guarantees. He had no ownership. He had no share in the business and the cattle, and so on. And the father got to a stage where he was starting to get a bit of some old age issues, I guess you could say, from a mental point of view, and he started to threaten the son all the time. So I'm going to give the whole lot to your sister who lives down in Dubbo. I still remember the story. The sister in Dubbo who had nothing to do with the farm ever, and so the father kept threatening the son, and the son was nearly 60, and it was tragic to see. And the interesting thing there is, I've done another video since then. We fixed it in the end for the son, and then the son had kids when I was dealing with him, because he was nearly 60, and I interviewed his daughter 2 or 3 years ago out at Roma, and he did the same thing to his daughter that his father did to him. It was like hereditary ignorance or hereditary bullying or something. So
on my turn. Yeah.
Sorry, say that again.
Maybe he just wanted his turn. But that's probably how it's passed down.
He wanted to be as nasty as his dad had been to him, to his daughter. So, but and that's why transition planning. When we meet people and they engage us, I can pick up pretty quickly where we need help with certain people. Whether it's, already we've talked about financial planners, we've talked about transition planners, and the next thing we're going to touch on is counsellors. We call this mental resilience, mental health resilience, and so on, Michelle. But many times I pick up early in the piece, there's conflict in the family, there's deep-seated issues, there's triggers, all these words I'm learning about. I could just about do this myself, I think, sometimes. No, I can't. So at one stage a few years ago, we had over 90% of our people that we were dealing with, I'd sent someone in the family off to have a chat to a counsellor. in regard to anger issues, narcissistic abuse they were receiving, mental health issues, depression, all these sorts of things. I mean, there's so many great organisations out there that are helping people, Black Dog and even the shirts I used to wear a bit, the trademark shirts and all these, there's lots and lots of people that are helping with mental health and mental resilience of people in rural Australia. And many times it's as I say, at one stage it was over 90% of our clients need that sort of help when you're looking at planning succession, estate planning, and so on, to make sure you've got a fairness and you end up. My biggest issue, as you'd know, is ending up with harmony within the family.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in your work, Michelle, and the work that you've done, and with Tom and so on too, you'd be aware of families where we've got not mental health, counselling services and so on involved to try and put out some of the fires that sometimes are there.
Yeah, and a lot of it is trauma.
Yep. Past trauma, usually it comes from the generation before, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's just same as before, passed down, and everyone's reluctant to see a counsellor, especially rural families.
Rural men.
Especially rural men.
You can say it.
Yeah. So it's just sort of been building and building and building, and but now it's good that we can offer this help and point them in the right direction there.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I'm meeting with a couple of other people this week who want to be involved in different levels of sort of helping our clients in regard to emotional resilience and counselling services and all those sorts of things, because it is a big issue. And I actually think men are now starting to accept that it's okay. If you break your leg, people know you've got to go and see a doctor. If you
some don't.
Sorry,
some don't.
So okay,
still think they'll be right.
Well, they'll fix it themselves.
Yeah.
But I mean, mostly if you've got something that's visible, like a cut your arm off or something like that.
Yeah.
Or you got a gash or a wound or something like that, you've got to go to the doctor. But seems to be still that stigma with mental health issues, and I don't think there needs to be these days. There's lots of services out there to help people. So we try and refer to it as emotional resilience, being resilient. But people are triggered by certain events. There's past abuse in some cases, past abuse or traumas, and sometimes it's who knows what caused it. But people just need some help in counselling, because we just always want to come back to having harmony in the family, and sometimes you just need outside people to help to allow the conversation so that people can move forward and end up with a great outcome.
Yeah.
Now the fifth role we outsource to is, and I mean these people are an integral part of the process, so we're not really outsourcing them; they're just part of the process, and that's the accountants. And you work a lot with them as part of what you do, Michelle, don't you?
Yeah, all the time.
Do you? Because, and I'm just going to raise an issue here. Sometimes people stall a bit at starting this whole process of estate and succession planning, and as you well know, one of the main reasons that people procrastinate is they think it's too big, too hard, and too complicated. And I mean, the truth is once you've got the authority from clients, you can pretty much talk to the accountants, can't you, and get 90% or more of the information that you need.
Yep, nearly every time we just get an email back authorizing us, and then we just deal with the accountant, and that's all we need. So yeah. Much simpler.
Well, it is, and I'm just going to touch again here and say this again, because people really stall and stumble, don't they, and procrastinate because they think they need to know everything. So when they start talking to us, it's kind of like, what do we need to bring? And I just say, just turn up and bring me a cup of tea and a scone.
Yeah.
We'll be right. So people don't need to turn up with a whole lot of documents. I mean, it's nice if they have a kind of an overview of, what they own and what they don't. But I mean, even then, if they're not 100% sure, because most people don't really understand their structures properly. The accountants do; they work with it all the time. And really, what I like to have the conversation with clients about is in their heart. What's their heart telling them they want to happen if something goes wrong? What's their heart telling them they'd like? What's the opportunity they want to leave for their kids? There might be one who's really keen on moving into take over the farm or the property eventually, run the cattle, whatever. But there might be others who want to set up a legal practice, or some not sure why, but there might be someone who wants to do that. Somebody wants to set up a dance school. Somebody wants to set up a beautician business or something like that, or whatever, or somebody wants to be a pilot, now there's an occupation. So it's a matter of how do mum and dad help all the kids with whatever their dreams are, and they're the conversations I like to have with the parents, is to find out what's in their heart for their children, and that's why I talk to the kids all individually as well, to understand what they're really dreaming about and aspiring to, and then see how we can match it all together. And there's been a couple of cases where no one wants to come back on the property, and that's okay too. And that's okay too. So they're the conversations I like to have with people when it comes to all the detail and so on. Michelle, I'll gladly hand that over to you guys to ring up the accountant, get everything you need, work out what the formal structures are, the trust, who the trustees, executors, appointors, and all those sorts of things. I don't care, and I don't need the clients to tell me that. I'd rather that you guys dealt with the outsourced to the accountants and got all that together so you can do your due diligence and all those sorts of things. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, very fair. Definitely, as you say, an overview is good, but that's all we need. And because we're going to need to talk with the accountant in most cases anyway. So just come, as you say, with your information you've already got built into you, what you want, what's concerning you, things like that. And that's all anyone needs for those first meetings.
And that's why you're so valuable to Tom, is you're good at getting all this information from the accountants and working out what to do with it. So good on you. Okay, the final role is probably the role that we do, is the facilitator's role. And many times people sort of look at me and go, "Well, Mark, that's great, all the things you're talking about. That's that all makes sense. How about I just go and see my solicitor?" And I go, "Well, yeah, good luck with that. I know you guys all well enough, and we'll be waiting this time next year for them to go and see their solicitor and for all the documents to get completed and so on. And as you know, we like to follow up and move things along and put timeframes and so on. Sometimes people have things that need to be done urgently and quickly and so on. But look, I just wrote some notes down very quickly. I mean, our role, at the end of the day, I often say to people, I need to have you emotionally connected to the problem and to the outcome that you desire. Because all the other people you talk to, I mean, they can give you all the facts and details and so on, but unless someone's emotionally connected, they're never going to take action. And until until they can sort of smell the roses on the coffin and they can picture what the kids are going to be doing if dad gets too old and can't run the business anymore. All those sorts of things. We have to motivate people to get the process started, and many times the previous generation helps us a lot because they've stuffed it up so much in their own succession planning. The children, the 60-year-olds or whatever, which are the next generation that we're getting engaged to help, have had such a bad experience from what their parents have done before them. That they just don't want that to happen. There's hundreds of times where I know people have come to us and said, "We just don't want the same thing to happen to our kids." We don't want our kids to be screwed over the way. I've just got this one client we've been dealing with recently. It just rings so true. The one of the children, off farm children, went and convinced his dad to change the will 3 days before he died, and he was still mentally capable, so it was all above board. But all this sort of stuff, by not having it locked in and having conversations and having created fairness and having the conversations between all the members of the family, that's one of the roles that I think is that important. So we've got to motivate people to get started. we create a process, our 9-step process, which really makes sure nothing gets missed, and we have a very thorough process. We start with a conversation. We work out what the burning issues are. We talk to all the family members. We want to make sure there's family harmony. Then we get you guys involved. The lawyers bring in the suits, as we call it, the lawyers, and to make sure we've got the due diligence, we've got the distribution matrix, we've got protected prosperity. So we've got wills with asset protection, testamentary trusts, and so on. And then we start talking about ongoing the succession planning process, and finally peace of mind to make sure that each year everything's kept up to date. It doesn't just get dumped in the top drawer. But also, what we've been talking about today, my role is to be able to have the conversations with the people and say, you know what, based on what you've told me, you really need to get a financial planner involved to come in and have a look at some of the options you might want for yourself, for your kids, for the business, and so on. Having the chat and realizing dad's just not wanting to let go, because we have this, I haven't named this syndrome yet, but I'm going to, is where when dad's the owner of the business, he can walk downtown in West Whoop Whoop, and everyone sort of bows their hat and says, here's Richard, the head honcho of XYZ station, and that's his life, that's his ego, his life, and all those sorts of things. So the transition planners are very helpful in regard to helping Richard move from being the head honcho and being able to walk down the street knowing that everyone's bowing as he walks past, to having a life after that. That the counselling services for a whole range of issues where people have been abused, they've been subject to narcissistic abuse by parents or siblings or whatever it is. We just need to make sure that everything is there to provide harmony and bring everyone and put them on the same track. And the accountants, as I said, you guys as the legal experts, to make sure you can decipher all this stuff, make it simple, and then create asset protection around it, and so on. That's why you need a team of people, and that's what we do. We're kind of like the ringmasters to work out. Not everyone needs all these people. Some just need their accountant to provide the information to you, and they just need you to get all the stuff done, and that's it. It's it might be simple, but other people, we've rolled up everyone for them and put them in one after another. But with me doing it, I know when to bring them in. I know to minimise the cost for people, because we just bring them in as required, so to speak. Is there anything you want to touch on, Michelle, as part of what we've been talking about today? It's I seem to have done all the talking.
No, that's fine. No, I just wanted to agree that your role is so important, and it just makes everything. I hope it would help people get past that hurdle of it's just all too hard. You step in, we'll do it all for you. We'll outsource. We'll tell you what you need. It's just such a valuable service for people because they don't know what they don't know, and they can be helped in so many
unaware squared, we call that. They're unaware of what they're unaware of.
Yeah. So it just can be really helpful for people who otherwise have no idea, except that they just don't want it to happen to them or to their kids, like we see all the time.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Anyway, anyone who's watching this, what I do is offer a service where you can just give me a call. We can have just a quick chat, 30-minute free Zoom call, phone call, whatever. It's book.markwestcott.com. That's all you have to put in, no wwws, just book.markwestcott.com, and arrange a 30-minute call. We can have a chat, see if you think I can help you, see if we can help you move past the procrastination maybe, and show you how simple it can be to help you with your estate and succession planning. So here we are at Estate and Succession Mastery. Michelle, thanks for your time again today. I want to see that surfboard move by next week when we have our next chat. I'm sorry we weren't here last week, but there was a very good reason for that. So until next week, we'll catch up with you next week. We'll see you then. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Bye.